When you stop contacting a woman, the first thing that often happens, especially if there were feelings involved, is emotional confusion. And I want to be clear here. This isn't just about missing a text or wondering where you went. It goes deeper than that. It shakes the very foundation of emotional expectations she had unconsciously built around your connection. You see, women don't operate on logic alone in relationships. They operate on emotional consistency. When a man has been a regular part of her emotional rhythm, his silence isn't just noticed. It's asterisk felt asterisk. It's not about the absence of messages. It's about the absence of emotional stimulation she's grown accustomed to. Suddenly, she's no longer responding to your good morning texts, your check-ins, your jokes, and that void doesn't sit quietly. It echoes. At first, her mind does what all minds do when confronted with uncertainty. It begins to search for answers. She replays the last few conversations, zooms in on your tone, your emojis, your response time. Was he pulling away and I missed it? Did I say something wrong? Has he lost interest? And this isn't a weakness. It's human nature. The brain is wired to seek closure. And where there is emotional dissonance, where expectation meets silence, there is always confusion. But here's the catch. This confusion doesn't always look like distress. Sometimes it shows up as indifference, sarcasm, or sudden coldness. It might manifest in her becoming more distant, even if she's hurting. Why? Because emotional confusion triggers defense. When a woman doesn't understand what just happened, when the shift is too sudden, too sharp, she either searches for resolution or builds emotional walls to protect herself from the sting of rejection. That's where emotional intelligence comes into play. The average man assumes if she hasn't reached out, she doesn't care, but what he doesn't see is the storm happening beneath the surface. She does care, but she's also trying to understand why she cares, and whether it's safe to care again. And in the middle of all this, something very critical is happening. She's learning. She's learning how she responds to emotional withdrawal. She's learning how much power she gave to your presence. She's learning whether she needs to adjust her emotional boundaries moving forward. So, even if she doesn't text you, even if she doesn't call she's thinking . The silence is making her reflect, reassess, and recalibrate. The emotional confusion doesn't last forever. It's just the first phase, but it's one of the most revealing. Because how a woman responds to that initial silence, whether she breaks down, breaks free, or breaks open, says everything about what your presence meant to her and what your absence is now teaching her. If there's one truth to hold onto, it's this. When a woman is confused by your silence, it means your voice mattered. Don't mistake her stillness for indifference. Sometimes the quietest moments carry the loudest realizations. After the emotional confusion settles in, she doesn't just sit in silence forever. Eventually, she begins to test the waters, but not in a way that's obvious or overt. You see, this is where things start getting subtle, calculated, even strategic. A woman who's emotionally impacted by your sudden absence won't always reach out directly. That would expose too much vulnerability, and remember, she's still trying to protect herself from the pain of possibly being rejected. So instead, she communicates in codes. This is where psychology meets behavior. She may start posting more frequently on social media, maybe more selfies, maybe photos that reflect confidence, joy, or even a hint of sensuality. But don't be naive enough to think it's random. It's not. These aren't just posts, they're signals. She's watching to see if you'll watch. Her stories might suddenly become more engaging, maybe even a little cryptic. A quote about being misunderstood, a lyric about walking away, a caption that seems like it's directed at no one, but in truth, it's directed at asterisk, you asterisk. It's emotional bait, subtle, clever, and steeped in psychological intent, and it's not just online behavior. You might hear from mutual friends that she's been asking about you, not directly, of course. Again, subtlety is everything. She might accidentally, like an old photo, view your story within seconds of posting, or appear in spaces where she knows she might run into you. This is her way of saying, I'm still here. I noticed your silence. I'm not chasing you, but I'm also not gone. Now here's the deeper truth. This isn't about ego. It's about emotional safety. A woman wants to know she mattered. Your silence introduced uncertainty, and now she's trying to restore emotional balance without sacrificing her dignity. She's not looking for just attention, she's looking for asterisk acknowledgement asterisk. That's the distinction so many men miss. These tests are often not power plays. They're vulnerability wearing armor. She's wondering, will he notice me now that I've stepped back too? Was it just me, or did we actually share something real? These indirect signals are how many women navigate the space between pride and emotional need. They don't want to appear needy, but they don't want to disappear either. So they walk that thin line, reaching out without reaching out. It's an emotional dance, a careful balance of proximity and distance, curiosity and caution. If you're emotionally tuned in, you'll see these signs for what they are, not as games, but as moments of emotional outreach. But if you're disconnected, blind to nuance, you'll miss them entirely and assume she's just moved on. And sometimes that mistaken assumption leads to permanent silence that could have been avoided. Remember this, not all messages come through words. Some come through presence, timing, and intention. A woman's subtle signals aren't signs of weakness, they're signs of emotional intelligence. If you're wise, you'll learn to read them before the silence becomes her final answer. Now here's where things start getting complex beneath the subtle signals. Beyond the quiet attempts to be seen, something deeper begins to stir within her. It's the silent clash between her ego and her emotions. And this internal conflict can be one of the most powerful psychological battles a woman goes through when a man she cared about suddenly pulls away. On one side, her emotions are calling out. They're raw, honest, and vulnerable. They want connection, closure, clarity, something to make sense of the shift. Her heart still feels the residue of the moments you shared, and part of her wants to reach out, to check in, to ask why. But then her ego enters the room and the tone changes. The ego in this context isn't about arrogance. It's about protection. It's the psychological shield that guards her from looking desperate, from feeling rejected all over again, or from appearing as though she needs someone who no longer prioritizes her. The ego says, hold back, don't give him the satisfaction, don't let him think you're still affected. But her emotions, those deeper, softer instincts, are still holding on to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, you still care. So now she's stuck, not physically, but emotionally. She'll pick up her phone, type a message, then delete it. She'll think of calling, then decide against it. She might cry one night and post a picture laughing the next day. Not because she's being fake, but because she's trying to regulate the emotional dissonance within her. It's not manipulation, it's survival. It's the mind's attempt to find balance between vulnerability and self-respect. This tug-of-war isn't easy. In fact, it's draining, and the longer the silence lasts, the louder both sides get. Her emotions begin to ask, was any of it even real? While her ego replies, even if it was, he should have fought harder. And sometimes it's not the silence itself that breaks the connection. It's the internal fatigue of carrying a love that now feels one-sided. This is the space where women change, not always outwardly, but internally. She starts redefining what she deserves. She begins to understand the weight of her own value and questions whether chasing clarity is worth compromising her peace. Because emotional confusion might create questions, but ego versus emotion creates identity shifts. She starts reevaluating not just asterisk you asterisk, but asterisk herself asterisk, what she allowed, what she missed, and what she'll never allow again. So the next time you wonder why she went from warm to cold, soft to guarded, open to distant, understand this: it wasn't sudden. It was built in silence, crafted through nights of conflict between the part of her that missed you and the part that knew she shouldn't have to. Never underestimate the strength it takes for a woman to silence her emotions in favor of her dignity. Because once the ego wins that internal war, the emotional door doesn't just close, it locks, and sometimes for good. At a certain point, something shifts. After confusion, after the subtle signals, after wrestling with that inner conflict between pride and emotion, she begins to channel her energy elsewhere. And this is where you'll often see her amplify her value, not in desperation, but in reclamation. She's not trying to win you back. She's trying to win herself back. This is one of the most misunderstood responses to silence. From the outside, it might look like she's suddenly showing off. She's dressing differently, posting more, leveling up in ways you hadn't seen before. Maybe she's at the gym more often. Maybe she's glowing in new pictures. Maybe she's surrounded by people, laughter, music, progress, and you're left wondering, why now? But here's the truth: when a woman starts to feel the emptiness your absence created, she's faced with a choice: let the silence shrink her, or let it sharpen her. And many women, especially those who are emotionally self-aware, will choose the latter. She'll take that emotional energy and pour it into herself. Her body, her friendships, her work, her goals, because it's no longer about getting your attention. It's about reminding asterisk, herself asterisk, who she is when she's not constantly questioning her worth through your presence, or lack of it. This isn't about pretending to be happy. It's about actively creating a new emotional ecosystem where her happiness is no longer contingent on your validation. She's reminding herself that her value was never dependent on being chosen, pursued, or noticed by you. It's an emotional detox. She's rewiring her sense of self, worth away from your attention, and anchoring it into her own actions. And yes, part of her might still hope that you notice. That's human, but the deeper transformation is internal. This is her way of saying, if you won't choose me, I will. That's not ego, it's evolution. And once a woman starts elevating herself not to impress you, but to asterisk heal asterisk from you, you begin to lose the version of her that was once emotionally available to you. Now here's the ironic twist. It's often in this stage when she starts to radiate more confidence, more certainty, more light, that you begin to feel her absence. Because suddenly she's not reaching out, she's not waiting, she's no longer sitting in silence, hoping for a return. She's become occupied with her own expansion, and for many men, that's when reality hits, not when she cried, not when she posted, but when she became too busy becoming her best self to look back. This phase isn't revenge. It's resilience, and it's beautiful to witness if you understand what you're seeing. But it's painful if you were the one who thought silence was power, only to realize she used it to awaken hers. So if you ever catch yourself wondering why she looks happier without you, remember, it wasn't that she stopped caring. It's that she started caring more about herself, and once a woman does that, the version of her you once knew rarely returns. Now, if she still has some emotional investment left, If your silence didn't completely drain her belief in what you two shared, there's a chance she'll reestablish contact. But it won't be how you expect. It won't be a full confession or a vulnerable "I miss you" a message. It'll be subtle, indirect, slightly guarded, because by now she's learned to protect herself while still reaching out just in case there's something worth salvaging. Maybe she reacts to one of your stories. Maybe she sends a meme or tags you in something that only the two of you would understand. Maybe she asks about something seemingly unimportant. "Hey, what was that place you mentioned again?" Or "Did you ever watch that show?" These aren't random. They're calculated bridges small tests to gauge your energy without exposing hers too much. It's important to understand this moment clearly. When a woman reaches out like this after you've gone silent, she's not just trying to start a conversation. She's checking to see if you're still emotionally available, if there's still a version of you that cares. She's saying, in her own guarded way, "I'm still here. Are you?" And whether or not she consciously realizes it, she's offering you one last opening to either reconnect or confirm what she's already begun to suspect, that you're no longer emotionally invested. What you do next matters, not just because she's watching, but because this is her emotional threshold. If you respond with coldness, indifference, or vague detachment, you're not just pushing her away. You're confirming every quiet fear she had during your silence. You're reinforcing the story she started writing in your absence, that you weren't serious, that you lost interest, that she was never really seen. But if you respond with clarity, warmth, or even honesty, whatever your truth may be, then at least she has emotional closure. Women aren't always looking for reconciliation. Sometimes they're simply looking for resolution, to know whether to hold on or let go without wondering what if every night. This moment, this quiet re-entry, is one of the most delicate parts of her emotional journey. Because even though she's showing interest, even though she's initiating contact, she's doing it from a place of quiet strength, not desperation. She's not crawling back. She's checking the temperature, and if the warmth she once felt is no longer there, she won't ask twice. A woman's indirect reach out isn't a game. It's a final act of emotional honesty wrapped in self-protection. When she sends that text, that reaction, that nudge, it's not just communication. It's vulnerability. It's courage. It's her heart asking a question her pride won't say out loud. So if you still care, speak now. Because once a woman reopens the door and finds no one waiting on the other side, she won't knock again. She'll simply walk away, and this time for good. Eventually, every woman reaches a crossroads. After the confusion, after sending signals, after wrestling with her ego and emotions, after even giving you that subtle opening to reconnect, if nothing shifts, she's left with only two real choices. Either she moves on, or she upgrades her standards so high that who you were is no longer enough to meet them. And whichever path she chooses, it marks a turning point that's often invisible to you until it's too late. See, silence has a strange way of forcing clarity. When you stop reaching out, it doesn't just create space, it creates contrast. It shows her what life feels like without your presence. At first, that might sting. It might feel hollow. But then, slowly, that emptiness becomes freedom. What once felt like loss begins to feel like peace. And this is where she starts realizing something powerful. Maybe she was the one holding things together. Maybe she was pouring into something that wasn't pouring back. And maybe, just maybe, she deserves more. This is not a bitter realization, it's a liberating one, because once a woman sees herself clearly without the filter of your attention, she starts to build new boundaries. The kind that aren't meant to punish you, but to protect her from ever being put in that emotional limbo again. She won't beg, she won't chase, she won't even explain. She'll simply recalibrate her life so that the next time she loves, she does it with more self-respect and less self-sacrifice. And here's the part that most men misunderstand. When she moves on, it doesn't always look dramatic. There are no grand exits, no speeches, no blocked numbers. Sometimes it's just quiet detachment. She no longer checks your stories. She stops wondering when you'll come back. Your name stops coming up in conversations, not because she's forcing it, but because it no longer carries the weight it once did. Or maybe she doesn't move on completely, but her standards evolve. She still remembers you, but now through a lens of learning, not longing. The bar is higher now. What once impressed her no longer moves her. She demands presence, not potential. Consistency, not charm. She's grown, and the silence you thought gave you control, it gave her perspective. That's the paradox of pulling away from a woman who cared. You might have expected her to chase, but instead she grew. And now, the version of her that once waited by the phone, replaying your messages, wondering what went wrong, that version no longer exists. She outgrew the silence, and by doing so, she outgrew you asterisk. So if you're still deciding whether to reach out, to be clear, to show up, just know you're not deciding in a vacuum. Time is always moving, and so is she. Emotional distance has a deadline, and once a woman decides that silence means no, her response will be permanent, not petty. When a woman stops wondering, she starts walking, and when she starts walking, she's already miles ahead, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. By then, your message won't be too late because it went unread. It'll be too late because she no longer needs the reply.